India Inc. is buzzing with expectations from the Union Budget 2022. So let's zero down on what the real estate has in its wish list. After all, the realty sector contributes to 8% of the country's GDP, and keeping it healthy and growing is important for the overall prosperity of the country. More importantly, the pandemic has given a new dimension to having a safe haven, which is a home of your own. So what can the budget do to encourage people to acquire a home? Let's get down to the answers with Niranjan Hiranandani, founder and MD of Hiranandani Group. We also have with us Anush Puri, Chairman, Anarok Property Consultants, and Venkat K. Narayana, CEO of Prestige Group. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me. I do know that there is a long laundry list that the industry has, but let's focus on the top three from a home buyer's perspective. Mr. Hiranandani, what are your top three in the wish list?
90% of my home buyers are borrowing loans from financial institutions to pay for their amount. However, the amount of interest deduction on home loans in the Income Tax Act has been plugged at 2 lakhs of rupees. I think that needs, and long ago, I don't even remember which year, this needs to be increased to at least 5 lakhs of rupees immediately. That's number one, I think, on my list. Number two is long-term capital gains. People who are investing into properties, as distinguished from people who are investing into capital markets, have to wait for 3 years to get the benefit of long-term capital gains, which is, really not fair. And I think the same benefit should be given for investment in real estate, and it should be brought to 12 months, similar as in the case of securities or shares. And the third important list, which is very, very important, is the standard deduction in the case of rental income. A lot of investments are done by FDI and foreign investors into commercial properties, but they don't invest into rental housing because the returns are 2 to 3%. I think the standard deduction, which has been 30% for the last at least 40 years, needs to be increased to 50% if we want to draw investment into this sector. So I think these are the three most important points. But if you will permit me, I'll add one more. That is Section 43CA, which requires me to sell at a rate which should be equal to or approximately equal to the ready reckoner rate. Now, all the states are increasing ready reckoner rates wrongfully because they want to increase tax collection. And at the same time, it means I have to sell properties at a higher rate than I want to sell. I think Section 43CA and 50C, which are relating to this, need to be scrapped long ago, but we'll better do it now.
All right, sir. Those four are very important, I must say. Venkat, you have additional points to make to those four? Because by the end of it, it seems we will cover at least 12. But, or you think that what Mr. Hiranandani has said are the four most important things that the budget can take care of this year?
Yes, what Mr. Hiranandani said is absolutely right. In addition to that, I will add three more. One is, I think we need to redefine the value and area of affordable housing. Now, given the work from home culture and the need for buying a larger home, now current the value that we have put is no longer seem to be relevant. At least non-metros, we should increase it from 45 lakhs to 75 lakhs, and maybe in metros, we should take it up to 1.5 crore. That will help in getting CLSS under a PMA scheme. So that's, I think, is important. That will definitely boost the demand for affordable and mid-income housing, number one. Number two, I think it's been long pending ask from the real estate that we should be given industry status and priority sector lending status. It will help us getting access to finance at better terms and for a longer duration. This has been an important thing from an industry which has been pending for a very long time. Okay. And the third most important is. I know GST Council is there to discuss, but GST and raw materials need to be rationalized, especially cement and steel, because it's so high, and right now we don't have input credits. It's all becoming a cost, and therefore prices are going up. If either we get input credit again, and also we rationalize the tax on our input material, I think that's going to help further boosting the demand and revival of the sector.
Anuj, so here's my question. Every year there's so much which is asked of the union budget by real estate sector, and we get so little. Now, this is a year when residential real estate has made a remarkable comeback. According to your own report, housing sales across top 7 cities rose 71% year on year, and they're just 10% short of pre-COVID levels. So here's my question. If the finance minister is reading all the figures that all of you are coming out with of these fabulous numbers of sales, and they must be wondering, what does the sector need and why do they need any kind of help? And we are the ones who need more revenue. So what tax breaks do we give?
So I would say is 3 or 4 things on that one, Manisha. It's a very pertinent point that you say, is that the comeback of the residential sector has been phenomenal. But, the momentum for the continuation of this sector is going to be very important for the GDP to continue to grow, for employment to continue to happen. And hence, there are a number of things that you will need to continue to do. At this moment in time, we're walking on very thin ice. This needs to be solidified, and hence, it does still need a lot of tender care and attention. Yes, the numbers have come back, but as I say, is that it still needs a lot more to be given so that, we are on a lot more stable ground. For example, 2 or 3 things I would say is, Manisha. One is the Swami Fund, that the government-sponsored fund is for stuck inventory. Now, majority of that money in that fund is being spent. It's a beautiful fund. It's brought in so much of confidence in the home buyer, particularly in the NCR. Now, is there a possibility that we can extend or we can add more quantum in that fund? Is there a possibility we can bring in more benefits to the developers who can do rental housing? Can we continue to extend the tax breaks, the tax incentives on affordable housing that are coming on to the developers so that, we don't stop this? And equally on the demand side, what Niranjan Bhai said is that it is true that the interest payment, we need that to increase from 2 lakhs to 5 lakhs. But equally, the deduction in ATC on the principal is very dismal. 2014, that limit was set at 1,50,000. And, we're still working on that 1,50,000. So you need that to increase to be able to prompt the demand. And likewise, I'll not go in other initiatives on improving the demand. But the question that you ask is that, do we need more? Yes, we need more. We are walking on thin ice. It needs to get into a thicker slab, perhaps a more concrete cement slab. And for that, you will need to continue to nurture the residential real estate by providing in more initiative, more incentives. And it will then overall help the GDP growth of the country, and it will bring in more employment and in turn perhaps bring in more taxes to the government.
No, interesting that you say that we are still, or the sector is still on very thin ice. Mr. Hiranandani, and here we are sitting, I don't know whether it's pre-budget jitters or US Fed rates. The stock markets have just had 4 days of intense bleed. NASDAQ has wiped out its entire 2021 gains. So this is like just when we thought that the demand's coming back. Do you think that these jitters, if we don't get a budget which is very clear about what it intends to do with the economy, we could actually see a lot more nervousness, and that might come back to housing demand as well?
Manisha, you are absolutely correct, because the situation is quite tense. People think about the improvements but are worried about the future. I do not think that without any incentives whatsoever, the markets will be able to sustain the levels at which it has reached. So I think a lot of support is required. And as you said, Manisha, correctly, that give it more to the actual home buyers or home users as a start, and also to the primary investment. Bring it pari passu with what your investors in the stock market. What is wrong with that? So I think all in all, you're right. I think there is an issue which we are talking about. And second, why not bring it, as has been correctly suggested, to bring infrastructure status in order to get borrowings for the industry in the same, with the township model that we have. We need long-term funds, and we do need larger leverage in terms of funding. So I think that infrastructure status, which it gives a larger amount of borrowing for longer periods of time is not available to real estate in a real sort of way. And that is why many long-term projects do get into difficulty, I think, all in all. The other part of it, which was mentioned by Anuj, is the Swami Fund. I'd like to clarify one more point under that. The Swami Fund is given only to one fund, which is done by State Bank of India. If the similar policy is given to other people like Kotak, like ICICI, like HDFC, we can increase this amount from 25,000 crores to 1,25,000 crores, which is actually the need. So while the Swami Fund is doing a fantastic job, the amount of funds dispersed is around 10,000 crores, while we need 1,25,000 crores to actually pull up the marketplace. So, and you don't need government money for this. You see, in the first case, government put in 10,000 crores or proposed to put in 10,000 crores. Now the various funds are themselves ready to do it, but they're not getting the same benefit which Swami Fund has been given.
Venkat, I mean, we keep talking about this industry status and you said that. And the one reason why the sector needs an industry status is because there's always been a credit crunch for the sector, right? But now, hasn't the market divided the good players from the not so good players? Are developers like you and Mr. Hiranandani still having a credit crunch? I mean, do you not get money at competitive rates?
Oh, we do. I mean, see this, whatever you're talking about, good players and not so good players, this consolidation process started much before the COVID, and it only got accelerated now. While we do have access to funds at competent rates, but we are talking about the industry as a whole. Not everybody will have this kind of access, and if you actually give the infrastructure status, then a certain amount of earmarked funds will come to the sectors. Therefore, everybody benefits, and of course, terms in terms of tenure. All of us are the same terms. So, longer duration accessibility of funds will help us embarking on townships, integrated models, walk to work kind of places and etc. Therefore, giving that is a need which will help not only good players, others, and help us, getting long-term source of funds.
Anuj, overall, I mean, look, I don't think we are going to roll back on the easy, both monetary or fiscal stance very, very quickly. I don't think we are likely to go the US way, at least for the next 6 months. Our recovery is very tenuous. But are there any other headwinds that the industry players are worried about?
I think, Manisha, you pointed out at the start, it is about the stock market. It is about the international liquidity coming into emerging markets like India. If Fed continues to harden its stance on the interest rates, there could be a suck out of liquidity from the emerging markets. So it does have an impact on India, and we've seen is that much of that liquidity has also found its way into the real estate, both on the listed equity space with developers, and equally at hard assets, where not only the home buyers have had more liquidity in their hand, but also a number of the private equity players have bought large office and retail portfolios. So the nervousness is largely remaining more on the liquidity side, that if the international markets and more mature markets continue to suck out money from emerging markets, then we could have an issue with the rates. And I do hope, as you rightly said, is Manisha, that our interest rates don't firm up as quickly, particularly on the home loan side, because that has been a big benefit in making sure that the momentum of the home sales has been as robust because of those interest rates. And I agree with you is that I don't think so in the next 6 months we're going to see a hardening of that stance.
All right.